Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this session changing SME global business landscape and the future of business banking. As SMEs, when we think of expanding our businesses beyond the shores of India, there are various challenges that we come across. Setting up a company, a new entity in a foreign country, appointing local directors, hiring, and most importantly, and perhaps the most cumbersome in my experience, is opening up a bank account. Even in developed economies, opening a bank account for a business takes 2 to 3 visits to the bank, multiple email exchanges, and printouts, among other things. Then there are other challenges as well, like transferring money in and out of India, the regulations and governance to be followed. While we talk about digital, many of these things are still manual and archaic. My guest today possibly has the answers to these challenges that we as SMEs face every time we go overseas to open an entity. I would like to welcome Mr. Rohit Kulkarni for this session. Rohit is a vice president at Payoneer. Uh, he has more than 20 years of experience in building businesses from grounds up. At Payoneer, he launched the brand in India and now heads Payoneer in South Asia, Middle East, and North Africa. Prior to Payoneer, Rohit has led various roles at Amazon India, Yahoo, GE Money, and Sodexo. Welcome, Rohit.
Thank you so much, Varun, and really feel very privileged and great to be here with all of you today.
Thank you, Rohit. So, Rohit and I would be discussing about some of the things that I mentioned earlier, and definitely much more about the changing landscape of global businesses and how the business banking is evolving for SMEs across the globe. So, Rohit, 2020 has been a very difficult year for all of us, both personally and professionally, and specifically for SMEs. On one hand, it has presented a lot of challenges like cash flows, credit lines, and so on. But on the other hand, it has also opened up a lot of new doors with increased market access as the reliance on virtual economy has increased. Now, you work across thousands of SMEs and freelancers in your particular role. So, what has been your experience on the challenges and opportunities that you foresee for SMEs in this current pandemic period?
Thanks, Varun, for that question. I think that's something which everyone has been, world over. It's a thing that has happened world over. It's not something which is restricted to one country or one region, right? So we all have faced it. Fortunately or unfortunately for what has happened at Payoneer, we are sitting on a pedestal where we really help people do cross-border sales. So we really see the impact of this in more than one country across many industries, and especially IT exporters and freelancers, as you were talking when I was backstage waiting for you and you're talking about what the session was. And seeing this from a bird's eye view and then being able to dive deep into it gives us quite a lot of data and trends that I would want to share today with the group today, right? While it has been a bell curve to start with, I mean, we saw business really, go sluggish in March, April period, but it started to bounce back from June onwards, and then it's quite stable from October, November period, right? In this period, while, as I said, it's been a bell curve, it has been a little topsy turvy, but overall, the sentiment has been positive. Digitalization has really taken roots, and almost 95% of Indian companies today have partially or fully moved to remote selling, and that's a testimony to what the things are in store for people. Now, what has this happened? Why has this happened, and what has this done to us? What we see is that overall business has gone up. If I compare revenues that we see flowing through in Jan and June, then June was almost 28% up over Jan. The growth rates have stagnated after that. So while we rebounded back, it's still not completely gone. The challenges exist in terms of further growth from here. We've seen that 37% of new freelancers have started to kind of get paid globally. Overall, we still have a lot of cost arbitration on our side, and therefore I really think that the early indicators are very positive. Of course, we'll have to continue to fight at a larger competitive landscape. We need to continue to create more and more differentiation, which is going to be a key for people like us, for businesses like us. And those are some things which we really want to look forward from SMEs to kind of maintain that growth rate. But overall, I see a positive sense. Of course, there are people at various points of time who have got impacted adversely, especially in the starting part of the COVID impact.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've faced issues in foreign countries in some of the places where we do not have, I mean, where we are a foreign company, we do not have access to credit lines. And, that is a challenge that many of the SMBs face because it's difficult to transfer money out of India. And when you are on a foreign shore and if the projects are on hold, there is always an issue or definitely an issue that we faced at the beginning of the pandemic.
True.
We also have issues in transferring money from overseas as well, where initially it was very difficult for us to travel to a bank, even in a country like Singapore, to sign up the form and initiate money transfer.
Mhm.
So I agree. We SMEs do face some of these issues. How does Payoneer solve the issue like access to capital and credit?
Sure.
Do you think this has been an issue not just for us but for a lot of other SMEs? And how do you help SMEs to cover this?
Sure, Varun. I think you touched upon a very important part of access to working capital. Is you are a exporting business yourself, and you have offices. You are a multi-country office today or a setup today. Are there any other challenges which you want to kind of count out, which you have faced, which could probably be relevant for most of us?
Uh, as I said, one of the things that we've faced is transferring money in this period. Not all banks in all the countries have online access, and many a times you need to exchange forms. So some of the banks did adopt to it by changing physical forms to email forms, but there is still that issue which we faced initially, right?
Got
And
it.
on the other side, the credit line is was an issue for us, definitely in certain locations.
Yeah, I think I'll break the answer into two parts. One is a very generic toolkit, which is in these days, what is expected out of a SMB, especially in a B2B sense, is that he turns and looks at what has happened in the consumer side of business. So go direct to consumer approach because people are looking at self service options. They are compelled to look at because they are considering one proposal from Argentina, who is our competitor, one proposal from Vietnam, and somebody from probably Hyderabad or Bangalore or Noida. So you're competing with the world. So self-service, direct-to-consumer thought process, evolving GTM models, making sure that your website is up to date, making sure that people can find your solutions, and all those things are super important as we kind of grow into this digital era. The second piece is to be able to do this, as you rightly said, you need access to capital, and especially if you are companies based outside of India or you have offshoots outside of India, then people like us, partners like us, are really in a position to offer you working capital. We today offer it, for example, in the US, in European regions, and some parts of Asia. So even if you are a entity outside of India and you don't have, great collaterals to offer and stuff like that, just the fact that you are doing business and you have flows coming in and going out is a good enough reason for players like us to really evaluate you, underwrite you for your business, and offer you loans. Actually, one step ahead, we also offer something called as a commercial card. So today, for example, if you are buying a Salesforce license for your sales team based out of Canada or US or Australia, wherever they are, or you are buying a CRM or a workflow license, you're doing some things like that. These are typically spent in FX, and it's very easy for you to kind of spend on your cards. If you're a business that needs to invest into AdWords or something like that, again, these are very viable options for us. So, in short, there are a bunch of features in addition to working capital, which are enablers, which are really very smart on their functionalities, which companies like us or partners like us could offer you to make your global experience really very rich and at the same time very very efficient versus making you run around pillar to post to scramble for docs and make it really tough for you. So if you we want you to focus on your core, which is your product and your pricing and your service levels, which you are good at.
Okay, no, that makes that makes a lot of sense, Rohit. And I'm sure the demand for your services would have been increasing in the past few months. One of the things that I've come across these days is around financial intelligence, and one concept that is gaining a lot of prominence with the SMEs and banking in general is the concept of open banking. How do you see open banking helping Indian SMEs, and what is your vision for open banking?
It is a must in my mind, and I'll tell you why. Today, if you look at our ecosystem, right? Let's assume that you are a resident in India, and you got to pay your electricity bill or water bill. What do? You go to your bank and pay it through the utility module, bill desk, or whatever else that is there. You want to do e-commerce, your bank supports you in doing e-commerce. You can go to a smart buy or whatever else they have to do that, right? You want to pay your local vendor, you want to pay your milkman, you want to pay anybody else, you have UPI to do that. On the consumer side, we have a very very robust ecosystem to be able to do so many things with a touch of a button, completely digitally. Now think of it from a business perspective, and those things are really absent today, or they're really taking shape now, if I can ask you. We were very early, or we were pioneers to build in this because we were global, so we didn't have an alternative but to completely make it digital today, right? So for example, today if you're a business in India and you have services that you offer in the UK, and you have a VAT or a tax liability in that country, what we really do is we have a very simple API, and you have collected money from your customers. You could use those balances through our API to pay very seamlessly to the UK VAT authorities, or bunch of countries in Europe or anywhere else, Singapore, Canada, Australia, wherever there is VAT. California now in the US also charges VAT. So this is a classic example where we've converted a need into a completely seamless platform for people. Think of logistics. There's the same thing there, right? You have API where you can really pay your logistics supplier only after the goods have been shipped. Think of freelancers today. Most of them get paid, per hour basis, right? So who's going to be the arbiter for how much time did you work? So we've integrated with time tracking companies, and you could pay them very seamlessly, like Time Doctor, etc. You could pay them seamlessly. We have APIs integrated with your QuickBooks kind of a thing, or zeros of the world, whether it's accounting, invoicing. So there is an ecosystem available to you, and this is what the need of the hour is, and this is what actually open banking is all about: putting everything under a wrapper into one umbrella, and then creating those mini modules for you to see it in one place and execute your actions from a single point of view, right? So this is one part of open banking, which is why SMBs really love it, and we hope to see more and more of it coming to India as things open up. The other is value drivers. So for example, today if you are a new business in India, you won't probably get access to capital even within India, because you don't have 3 years of ITRs filed, or probably you don't have a property or a stock to mortgage. In our business, we don't have stocks, right? It's all about human capital that we have. How do you get that? Probably open banking and neo bank companies are completely digital. They do two things. One is they are able to develop a score for you to be able to get capital access, even if you're a new business. And the second is, because they are completely digital, they break the cost down and they offer you at a very, very affordable, cheap rate. So because their cost structures are low, they can really either take more risk or pass the advantages of those cost structures down to you. And I can keep on giving more and more examples of value drivers. They can range from simple things like KYC to really very, very savvy things, which is working capital, sequestration of your expenses and capital expenses, payable stack, the receivable stack, multi-party payments, creating a payment network, all those kind of things today. And today, what you require otherwise is a software department to do all these activities. These get broken down. SMBs can't probably afford a full stack development team of 25 people to do all this, and therefore I am very gungo about open banking. We already seen some of these things take off in India. We are a big proponent of that, and we continue to hope to create more and more avenues for people to come and leverage some of these trends in features, functionalities, to grow and scale up their business. At the core, our principle is that we want to drive parity for SMBs with enterprise by breaking all these barriers and let them compete. And I think they have the smartness and everything else in their favor to compete with larger companies. And that's our Uber goal, if I can call it.
Thank you, Rohit. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, to compete with the larger enterprises, especially during the pandemic, one thing that SMEs lack or are limited by is the access to capital. And I'm sure, I think, your platform and the services and offerings you have definitely fit in into the requirements that the SMEs have today. So thank you, Rohit, for an interesting insight on the financial ecosystem and how it is evolving, and your positioning on how you're delivering values to the SMB business. I believe as an Indian SME business, as Indian SME businesses continue to expand and gain prominence across the globe, there are a lot of opportunities to grow, and a lot of things that we would require, from access to capital to bank transfers and so on and so forth, for which many of us would look forward to Payoneer as one of our choices. Uh, do you have any closing comments, Rohit, before we end the session today?
Yeah, very quickly, and I'll keep it short in consideration of time. Is hopefully what I said was meaningful to people. I would want all the SMBs to really feel comfortable that global stage is up for them. That they can compete. They have the products, they have the services to take it to global. Whether it is SaaS based products or whether it is solution based products, whatever they create, I am very gungo about it. We have made a mark already in this area of not only outsourcing and freelancing, but also creating newer products. If you look at the new gen products, they are all about product forays versus just people forays. So I really look forward for more and more of that. And to end the note, thank you so much for having me, Varun. And I really appreciate the NISC platform to enable not only us but for SMEs to come together and really make this conversation very fruitful for each one of us. So thanks once more, and look forward to seeing all of us succeed and coming out of this pandemic fast.
Thank you, Rohit. And we all expect to come out of this pandemic stronger than ever. And I'm sure as the SMEs grow, with especially the IT SMEs in India grow global, because now it's easier for us to go for businesses globally by doing remote selling, as you earlier mentioned. I'm sure we would all require services like yours, and there would be a lot more opportunities for all of us to grow together. Thank you, Rohit, again for your
Thanks.
time. Look forward to working with you sometimes in the
Absolutely.
future.
My pleasure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Yep. Bye.